Hey guys, MCU Collector here with a new video, and this one is an extremely exciting one for me because if you guys know, Spider-Man is my all-time favorite character in Marvel Comics hero and overall superhero, everything. Spider-Man is the guy. But one character that I absolutely love as well is Cindy Moon Silk. Now there's a couple of reasons why I really like her. When I was first introduced into the comics themselves, I knew about the Marvel comic characters from the 90s and the animated series, all that. I've enjoyed all the movies. The MCU really got me into Marvel and everything. And then when I started reading comics and those kinds of things, it was actually around the time that Cindy Moon was introduced in that new Spider-Man run. So I actually have the comic for her first appearance. I have that #1 Spider-Man issue. I have all of Silk's titled issues. I don't have every comic that she's appeared in, but all of her Silk titled comic runs, the 2 volumes, I have both of those. I have them all, and I really enjoyed them. The artwork for me, I started to kind of lose interest in as the comic run started to go. When it first started, there was one artist, and then it changed artists, and I don't know their names, forgive me. But I really did enjoy the story of Silk. So I'm very pleased that she won the fan vote for 2020. Sif, in all honesty, probably should have won because the only Sif figure that we had was in the A-Force box set. So it would have been great for people to actually get that Sif figure right there. To have individually, everyone would have had the chance, but Silk sold out extremely fast. So how really pissed off would people have been if Sif had won and then they couldn't even get an order in? As crazy it is. But Silk won because it was an awesome figure, and then the Space Venom wave was kind of a difficult one to get, or the distribution was kind of crap on it. Yeah, Walmart online had all the figures pretty cheap at one time, but in stores where people still get, for the most part, their orders. Now online is the big thing because of the pandemic, and for the most part, it was already kind of big, but back then it was all about what you can kind of get in the stores and whatnot. So we have a new Silk, and the best thing about it is it's kind of that comic accurate. Not that this one was wrong, but like in Silk #1, the cover, she appears to have gray in the suit, but it's actually white. So the figure is actually going to be comic accurate, which is great. I have seen some reviews like X-Manny's, and it doesn't look like there's anything on the back, unfortunately, whereas this one definitely had some things going on in the back. So I think there's some images of Silk where she doesn't actually have any kind of design on the back of the suit, but all those kinds of crazy things. But I've talked already for almost 3 minutes. Sorry about that, guys. I know you guys are here to see the figure. I just wanted to kind of express and show my love for Cindy Moon, the character. She's also Korean and a spider hero, right? That's just the combination was perfect for me. So I do absolutely love her. As a character, and I love the figure, and I'm very excited that she was the winner to get it. So fan vote 2020 there at the bottom. The artwork is just awesome. I think Jerry Wilson had composited all the various different images together to give one look. If you go to his Instagram account, I'll include a link in the video description below. You can see the entire image all together as one instead of kind of as it's separated kind of throughout the packaging here. But one thing that he did was really cool. He actually included Silk, he included Sif, which is right there, and he included Elektra, which were the 3 options in the 3 choices to vote. So it's kind of cool that he did that. So it ended up working. No matter who was going to win, the artwork and the package was going to stay the same, which is why it says fan vote 2020 and doesn't actually say Silk. Now I do believe that Elektra and Sif will get a release somewhere down the line. With these fan votes, that is always what ends up happening, that Hasbro just releases all of those ones anyway, because they see the demand is there. People want those figures. Hasbro is not going to disappoint in that, and they will release. Now, sometimes it takes time, but they will get to it. 4 minutes now. Let's get to it and finally open up this figure. Okay, and here is the Silk figure out of the package, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. The figure is disappointing in several different ways, but from looking at it forward, the aesthetic of the figure is very nice, but I definitely do have some problems. So as much as I love the character and still love the figure regardless, I still will talk about some issues that the figure has. But don't get me wrong, I still absolutely love the figure, but I wish some things were done differently, and more importantly, I wish some things were done better with the figure. So with that, let's zoom in and kind of look at some of those details. Okay, so here's a close-up look at the Silk figure. So it is the same figure, same body mold that they use. There are some things that they kind of changed up, but looking at like the unmasked head sculpt, they are the same, except the paint was done a little bit differently. We get a brighter red lipstick on the new one. We have the same blue shading throughout, but it's much heavier on the new one compared to the old one. And then the eye makeup is a little bit different. The eyeliner is a little bit heavier looking, and she almost looks, maybe looks a little bit more Asian on the new one. But one thing that's really weird on mine is you can see, I don't know what's going on with that on the cheek, and I think X-Man, he had the same issue with his. But his came in, his box was kind of crushed. Mine was good, and yet that's still there. Looking at the other one that I have that's still in box, and I can't really tell. So maybe that's just how that plastic mold insert, how it ends up working out for the figure. So that's a bit unfortunate that we kind of have that. And then looking at the figure paint apps, mine are actually okay. Now I've heard some stories, some folks having some really bad ones. So, you know, I think in some of the overseas countries, if you're able to purchase these in a store somewhere, you may have the opportunity to look at several and kind of pick and choose whichever paint apps are going to have the best for you. So it's just, you know, one of those things, luck of the draw when ordering from Hasbro Pulse. But overall, mine's not bad, but it's also not that great. You know, coming off the original release from the Space Venom wave, what was done on this figure was just done so nicely. The way the red spider lines actually faded into black lines was done extremely well. They kind of did that here, but not nearly as good. One of the ways you could see that is you see that red line and that black line there, they just don't match up, where they would have kind of overlaid each other and it would have kind of had that same effect as you could like see here, but it just missed the mark there. Not quite lined up perfectly on this side either. So that's just it's a little unfortunate. You know, I really wish it would have been better. And then looking at the spider lines here, those lines should continue into the black, but they don't, so they just kind of stop there. So you have a little tiny black line there meeting in with the red, but it should have gone all the way to the side. So it just kind of misses the mark there. It's a little fuzzy right there. And then on the legs, you know, when you get those multiple layers of paint on certain spots, it should line up, but you could see there's one layer there and then another layer that didn't quite line up perfectly. So it's just a little unfortunate on mine, kind of how that turned out. And I'm sure there's worse out there. I'm sure there's slightly better out there. Overall, it's not that big of a deal to complain about because those are minor things. But I do want to point that out. You know, when you are anticipating a figure so much, you want it to be perfect, and this just quite isn't there. Not that there's any perfect to a figure, but, you know, just thought I'd point that out. But the Silk logo there in the middle, it does look really good. Now, the back of the figure has nothing at all. We get the white lines on the legs, kind of wrap around a little bit, and then here on the shoulders, but there's nothing. When you look at the original release, we get that whole thing, that Silk logo there on the back as well. So again, some images you'll see a lot of that on the back of the figure. The white would continue on, but then there are some images out there where there's nothing on her back, but this is how it should look, not this. So that's unfortunate that they kind of skipped out and did it that way. I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind that was. Now, one big difference between this release and the original release is this one actually comes with some accessories, whereas the original release, she came with the two head sculpts, of course. So the masked head sculpt, which this one does come with, which we will take a look and kind of do a comparison. And then that was it, you know, and then she had the little floating, you know, mask cover piece. This one actually comes with interchangeable hands. So this one only had a fist on the right and open hand for the left. This one, she has two open hands. She comes with two fists, and she has two holding hands as well. Not sure what she's going to hold, but she could hold something if you wanted her to. So if you use some other kind of accessory, that's really cool. And then she also has this web effect piece that came with the Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman. So with Silk, she actually spins her webs out of her fingertips. So this isn't quite right, I would say, but I guess it's still pretty good. X-Manny had pointed this out, that, you know, you wouldn't think that'd be a thumb in there because Julia Carpenter has white gloves. But yeah, that's her thumb there. So it's interesting kind of how that worked out. So that's pretty cool. I you know, I see the idea and it kind of works, but it's not quite right, because why would there be a bunch of, you know, web there on her hand? Yeah, that's the figure, and then white for the shoes there. But that's what's going on. But looking at the head sculpt here, as you can see when doing a comparison with the original release, kind of the same thing going on here. We get the same blue shading. I would say it's probably a little bit heavier on the new one, but it's basically the same. Skin tone looks the same. The paint actually looks the same, whereas I kind of had a little missing black paint on the eyebrow of my original release. The red is a little bit brighter on the older one. It's a little bit more dull on the newer one. But paint-wise, looks to be about the same. I don't really see a whole lot of differences like the unmasked head sculpts, where, you know, you had difference in the eye makeup. For the most part, this one is the same. So now let's zoom out for her articulation. Okay, so Silk's articulation, so she can look all the way down, which is great. She's not really going to be able to look up because the hair is just going to hit the back. You're not really going to be able to do a whole lot. She does have some pivot going on with her head there, and then of course she can get the full rotation. Her arms can go up that high. You get a full rotation, of course, and of course single jointed elbow on a female figure, so it has the swivel at the elbow, and we get a 90-degree bend, and that is it. Wrists swivel, and they do hinge. All the hands have the swivel and hinge, except for the web effect hand. There is no hinge whatsoever, so it just pegs in there and goes straight, and that is it. We have a diaphragm on here, so she can pivot to the side that much. She can pivot to the other side that much. She can pivot back quite a bit, and you can see that they did at least continue those red lines going on the figure. And then on the old original release, they did that as well. It doesn't seem to go back as much, but you can see the web patterns a little bit more tight on the new one and a little bit more kind of spread out on the older one. Going forward, not really a whole lot, and then there's no waist swivel, so you can kind of get that twist and turn at that diaphragm joint. Legs only go out that far apart, which is unfortunate. She's a spider character. She's going to be swinging around. She needs the movement throughout the entire figure, and this figure just can't deliver on that with this female body. So that is it. Kicking forward, she can kick very, very, very high forward. Doesn't really go back a whole lot. You have an upper thigh cut there. You get a double jointed knee like so. No calf swivel or boot swivel or anything. Foot hinges down that much, hinges up a little bit. Ankle pivot, peg holes at the bottom of the feet. So it's decent, but not enough. It's what we see with all the female figures, because they basically all use the same female body at this point. Every now and then it's kind of switched up, but really they're the same for the most part. Okay, and so for the only side-by-side comparisons that I'm going to do is going to be the original Silk, the new Silk, and the retro wave Spider-Man figure, because we know when Peter Parker and Cindy Moon get in close proximity together, their spider senses, they just have like an instant attraction between the two. So it's just kind of one of those things. Now we know that there is going to be a J. Jonah Jameson figure that's going to be coming out either late this year, probably next year, and it's likely going to be on the same Spider-Man retro card. So J. Jonah Jameson was actually a big part of the Silk comic in the entire run, really, because she worked for J. Jonah Jameson at the Fact Channel, and then it had a big role when it came to the clone conspiracy, the Dead No More. That entire storyline, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on with that, so that Silk will be good with that J. Jonah Jameson. And then going with that storyline, I would really like to see a Silkworm figure get released, which is Silk just using an alternate identity because she had gone to San Francisco for that clone conspiracy storyline. So she kind of wanted to cover up. It's like, well, why Silk in San Francisco? So they went with Silkworm as if she was a different character. So I'd like to see some additional figures from that, from that storyline. We have a couple of different Black Cats that we could use, but I would also like to see, and I don't remember his name, but it was her ex-boyfriend. He was dead, so he was kind of like a ghost, and I can't remember exactly what his name was. Phantom, some ghost, something. I don't remember what it was, but I would love to see that made in figure form. But looking at these two, they are both still really good, but the white really pops and stands out and just looks better overall, even though I do think the original release is actually the better figure than the new one. Even though the new one has all these cool accessories like hands and everything, it's still just not as good as the original. So original is still the best, hands down for me, even though this one just looks better overall. From the front, you look at it from the back and it's just all black, it's not good. But, you know, if you had your choice between the two, I would probably say get the original. I don't know if the price is going to come down on her or not, but, you know, I definitely think the original is a must-have. If you can also get this one, can't get the original, then get this one. Either way, I say get one of them. You pick and choose whichever one you can actually get yourself. Okay, so my final thoughts on the figure. I do really like it aesthetically. It looks very good from the front. Unfortunately, not so much from the back. You know, if you missed out on the first one, this one's definitely a must-have. If you have that first one, and maybe this one's an easy pass. The whole fan vote thing, I think, is a very interesting concept. I love the packaging art that is on there. Sif and Elektra, no doubt in my mind, will get a release later on. But I am very pleased with this figure. Yes, it may have its problems, but I love the Silk character, so of course I want every figure that they're going to make of her, which I hope they come out with the Silkworm, which I already talked about. And then I would really, really love to see a first appearance Silk where she does the spiderweb suit, so it's all the white suit that's done in the webbing and everything. I would love to see that figure get made. Maybe one day I'm going to have to DM Danyon and say, hey, yo, us Koreans, man, we got to stick together. Let's get a Silk Cindy Moon first appearance figure made. So hopefully we see that somewhere down the line in the future. We shall see. I don't know. I'm curious. You guys let me know down in the comments below. Did you vote for Silk or did you vote for Sif? Or maybe were you in the minority and voted for that white suit Elektra? I'm curious. Let me know down below. If you guys liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching.